Hello, good morning, or good afternoon, or good night, depending on when you're watching this video. And welcome to Get Booked with Mary and Jennifer. Today we're going to talk about series. Hey Jen, what makes a series?
Alright, so my thoughts on a series are 5 books or more. Because 3 books is just a trilogy, 4 books it's ending, but 5 books really makes it.
Okay.
And of course my favorite series is Harry Potter. Rockin' my Gryffindor. Totally not Gryffindor.
I'm Gryffindor. Jen is
Ravenclaw. I don't know why that just came out. I'm obviously Ravenclaw. Anyways, Harry Potter, one of our favorite books that we talk about extensively.
Yes.
I'm just going to go next again because I love books as usual. This one is a kid's book. It's called Fairest of All. It's part of the Whatever After series by Sarah Milanowski. It's Fractured Fairy Tales, and in this one she is in the Snow White story.
Cool. So my first book I have is an adult book. It's the Jacqueline Winspear Maisie Dobbs series. These are really cool if you like historical fiction and you also like things like Downton Abbey or like any of the murder mysteries, particularly the ones that are kind of like historical fiction murder mysteries on PBS or Acorn. So Maisie Dobbs was a nurse in World War I, and she's now a private detective post-World War I. So you get a lot of like Britain trying to deal with a lot of the post-World War I issues and problems and things leading up to World War II. They're super good. They're not, they're like a good read if you want like just a kind of like a classic mystery. So they are one of my faves.
I just realized, of course I did this. I have 2 May Cabot books. Anyone who knows me knows I love May Cabot. This one, Allie Finch's Rules for Girls, is a series. Allie is 9 and she's moving and she's afraid that everything in her life is going to change, which obviously it does because she's moving, but she's trying to figure out her life and how everything else works now that she's got a new school and has to deal with new friends. And the Princess Diaries is one of my all-time favorite series. This actually brought me into the YA world, and it's the reason I became a YA librarian, and I will always, always, always love May Cabot. But Princess Mia is a little bit different than the movies. She's in New York. She discovers that she's a princess. She has to take princess lessons, which she hates. Really awesome series. Similar to the movie, but different in a lot of ways too.
Okay. So my next pick is a graphic novel series. It actually just ended within the past year, I believe. It's by Brian K. Vaughan. It's called Paper Girls. So if that name sounds familiar, it's because he writes Saga. He also wrote the first iteration of Runaways, and he also wrote Why the Last Man. So he does like really cool series, and they're always never the same, which is why I appreciate them. So Paper Girls is for the fans of like Stranger Things. It's a comic that takes place in 1988, the day after Halloween. It's about a bunch of girls who deliver newspapers in the suburb in Ohio, outside of Cleveland, and they think they just run across a bunch of like drunk teenagers that are still in costume and they're getting harassed because they have been harassed by like teen boys before while they're delivering. But it turns out it's something else, something maybe from an alternate dimension or people from the future. Who knows? So that's the first one, and the story just keeps going, and it's weird and delightful, and not quite as scary as Stranger Things, but definitely has that sci-fi vibe. But it's also set in the 80s, so there's a lot of great fashion.
Of course, because the 80s was known for the fashion.
It was.
Alright, my next book is Dying to Meet You. It is part of the 43 Old Cemetery Road series. This book is for kids. It's by Kate Kleiss and illustrated by her sister M. Sarah Kleiss. It's an epistolary novel, which means it's a lot of letters. There's some newspaper articles. There's some drawings. And what happened is there is an author, I think R.L. Stine, who's kind of grumpy, and he rents this old house, doesn't realize that there's a boy who came with him because Simon's parents just up and left him, and there's a ghost in the house, and they all communicate through the letters and things. It's really fun. And there's lots of puns with the names. It's great.
So my next pick is one of my favorite comics of all time. I started reading this one when I was around 12. This is a collected edition. We have 2 collected editions of Xcalibur. They are an Uncanny X-Men spinoff that takes place in Great Britain. but it's really cool because you don't really need to know anything about X-Men because it tells you everything you need to know, and it really kind of exists in its own bubble. And it's the British team with Kitty Pryde, who's Shadowcat, and Nightcrawler, and Rachel Summers, who you may or may know if you haven't ever watched the cartoon or read any of the comics. She's not usually featured because she's a complicated character. But it's really cool. Chris Claremont is a huge Doctor Who fan, and you get that in this comic because there's a lot of, there's the biggest part of this comic is the cross-time caper, is they're jumping into alternate realities and trying not to mess up time. But of course messing up time, because that's what superheroes do. It's great, it's snarky, it's really fun. Man, you could read it from like middle grade all the way up because it's just a solid superhero comic.
This next one is a middle grade. It's in our tween section. It's the Cantor Woodcrest series, which I love. If you have horse-loving readers, this is a fantastic series. It starts off with Sasha Silver and her horse is Charm, and they're going to an elite riding academy. I think this Sasha's character has 10 or 12 books, and then it spins off and there's another character in the same elite riding academy. So there's like 20 books, and they're all really fun. There's of course lots of drama with friendships and mean girls and boys and delicious treats at this fun cafe. And
Mean Girls, you say? In a YA book?
it's super fun, super cute.
Cool. So my next pick is more of an adult comic, well, older teen or adult. It's called The Wicked and the Divine. This one also just ended too. We have all of them on the shelf. It's really great, especially if you're a fan of Neil Gaiman and Sandman. It has a real Sandman feel to it. So the tagline is, every 90 years, 12 gods return as young people. They're loved, they're hated in 2 years, and they're all dead. It's happening now, it's happening again. So these gods keep dying. But one of the fun parts of the book is that a lot of the gods, because they want to be beloved and adored, they've come back as like pop stars or like reality TV show people. And they are just as, like, you know, when you read like the Percy Jackson books, the gods are like really full of themselves. Oh, very full of themselves here. And so it's the whole kind of thing where it's like, well, of course they got murdered. They deserve to die. But it's like, do they? Who's killing the gods? So it's this whole mystery. It's definitely for the older teen or for the adult, but it's super good. I love the artwork, and it's really snarky too, which I appreciate in a good comic.
Stark is always good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I would tell you I love you, but then I have to kill you, is the first book in Allie Carter's Gallagher Girls series, which is another boarding school, but this time it's a spy school, and it's awesome, and they're obviously training to be spies. There's 6 girls. I think there's 5 or 6 books in this series, and they're all fantastic.
Well, Allie Carter's fantastic.
I love Allie Carter.
She has one of my favorite YA reads from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so my next pick is actually now a Netflix show. It's called Lock and Key. It's by Joe Hill, if that name sounds familiar. He's also Stephen King's son. This comic is one of those comics I bought in a single issue, and it drove me nuts because he would go on hiatus, and so you'd have to wait 6 months to get the next part, and you're just like, why?
Oh, frustrating.
It's very much like the whole I'm waiting for that next Harry Potter. Lock and Key was like that for comic readers. It's about a family that has gone through a lot. Their dad was horribly murdered, so this is more of a YA comic, at their house in California, or West Coast, and then they end up having to move back home, of course to New England, because, you know, that whole Stephen King Hill collection, Joe Hill connection. And they move into Key House, the family's original house, and it's like this big English manor, and the kids start exploring, and they start finding all these keys. But the keys will do things, like they open things, but not just doors. Like one of them is the head key, so you can open your head and you can take out your emotions, which one of the kids does because she doesn't want to feel sad anymore and depressed. But then there's repercussions from that. There's one key that can change your gender. The one key that can, I think, turn on the lights and turn on the dark. Like it's really creepy and it's really spooky. But also, like, where do these keys come from? That's a huge mystery. And like, there's also this kid that shows up that apparently might have also shown up like 20 years ago when their dad was in high school. A little bit of a mystery, kind of weird, maybe spooky, maybe creature of the night, we don't know. So it's a great, awesome, creepy read.
Alright, my next 2 are kind of similar. Kristen Higgins, The Best Man, and Jill Shalvis, Accidentally on Purpose. These are both first in a series. Kristen's is following a family who owns a Vineyard, small town charm. Kristen is really, really funny, so you chuckle a lot. And the romance is great. She's one of my favorites. Jill Chavez is another favorite. Again, small town. It's not really a small town. They're in San Francisco, but they're in like a corner of San Francisco where everybody kind of knows each other, so it has this small town charm feeling. There's a fountain, and the thing is, if you throw a coin in the fountain and make a wish for true love, it happens, and so everybody comes to this fountain and they wish for true love, and most of the characters actually are not looking for true love, but of course they find it anyways.
Okay, so the last book we're going to talk about today is a favorite at our library. Well, for me and Jen at least.
Yes.
This is Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass series. This is like, I think, the series that put her on the map. So it's a YA fantasy series, but adults read it all the time too, because it's super good. If you like a really good revenge story, this is the ultimate revenge story, and it doesn't just run this book, it runs through the entire series. A lot of it is about growing up too, and like, does destiny pick you, or do you choose your destiny? And it's just pretty much amazing. Selena Sardathian is the world's best assassin in this world, or at least she thinks she is, because she got caught, and she's been working in the salt mines, and the prince of the region comes to pick her as his champion. They have this huge competition. That's what the first book's about. But there's a bunch of mysteries in this. There's a prophecy, so you can check that off your YA fantasy book bingo. And it's just super good. There's magic, there's elves, there's all kinds of murder. It's amazing. There's like, what, 7 books in the series and 2 novellas, I think, or 3? I don't know. We have the novellas in 1 book, though. But it's really, really good, and then, you know, you don't even know how good it's going to be from the first one, because eventually there's even witches, and the witches are the best part of the whole series, I think. It's so, so good. I definitely did cry. I laughed. I went, yes, when people got murdered. It's a great, great book. So I think that's the last for our series. Do you have fun socks this week?
Oh, I do. Of course I do. I have my due date socks on. Aren't they so fancy?
That's hilarious. I wore my rainbow shoes today. They have rainbows on the bottom.
Nice. We will see you next week where we talk more books.
Mm-hmm.